And I remember when I was 18, 19, 20 years old, emotions sometimes can get the best of you. But absolutely, we're going to do everything we can to support those guys. I had several of those guys text me after the meeting apologizing, saying that, we lost control of our emotions. We shouldn't have walked out. And I appreciated that. And I responded to them and said, hey, I want to sit down with you. I want to talk to you. We want to do everything we can to support our players. And I know for them, it's hard to understand right now why we're doing this. It's hard for them because they love their coach. They love what they're doing. They've played extremely hard this year. They've been competitive in so many games. And for them, to then have this happen, it's hard. It's a hard situation. And so we want to be there to support. We want to show them ultimately that we're going to bring a coach in that is going to help them get over that hump and help them be successful. But most importantly right now, we want to make sure that emotionally they're in a good place. And, I have some follow-up meetings already set with some guys, and we'll continue to do that.
Keith, in the Kermit Davis search, over here, Keith, in the Kermit Davis search, it was you and Ross, and y'all were the decision makers. In this search, is it you and someone, or is it just you? Who will have the final say when you do make a choice for a coach? Yeah,
this will just be me. I'll be working with Chad, with Ventura, and we're going to work very quickly. We're going to try to be efficient. We'll obviously try to be confidential, but we're going to try to move very quickly. I'll probably have some advisors, some people that will help me along the way, but ultimately when sitting down with candidates, it'll just be me.
Keith, I'm curious over here. I'm curious, when did you start kind of getting a feel for the coaching landscape, and when you kind of talked to some people maybe who represent some of the targets that you're looking at, what was kind of the feedback that you got about the Ole Miss job and the way that it's considered today?
Yeah, I think I think that because of a lot of the hard work that Matt and his staff have done, the program's in a much better place now than it was when he took over, obviously. And I've said it before, I think as we get farther away from a lot of the NCAA issues, that things continue to get better and better. We started looking at some things a couple days ago. And you're always looking. As an AD, you're always kind of watching games and looking for talent and those type of things and trying to identify people. You may not need them now, but you might need them later. And so that's something that I've tried to do really throughout the season. And really the last couple of days, just making some calls and trying to get a little farther down the line with some potential interest. And what I've learned is people are interested. They're interested in our job. And, I think it's very attractive. Like I said, we have a great roster of young men that are coming back next year, a lot to build on. And I think a new coach would look at this as a very attractive situation.
Keith, what instructions have been given to the current staff in regards to recruiting, and will the current staff members be allowed an opportunity to interview with whoever the new head coach is?
So I didn't mention this before, but Mike McIntyre will take over and be in charge of the team in the interim period. I spoke with him this morning, and he was more than willing to do that. The assistant coaches are on the road right now, and what we've told them is to please just go in and continue the visits, wear the Ole Miss logo, continue to spread the Ole Miss message, and they've been great. The assistants have been great. This is a hard time for them as well, obviously. But absolutely, as we talk to a new coach, we will encourage the new coach to look at this staff. I think this staff has done a tremendous job in a lot of ways. And I think there's some pieces on this staff that could be very beneficial to a new staff, potentially. So, we know how this works. A new coach will have the autonomy to bring in who he wants to. But certainly we will talk about our assistants and some of the good things they've done.
Keith, what's the time period for the coaching search in your eyes, with obviously early signing day coming up very quickly?
Yeah, like I said, we want to move as quickly as possible. I think with this new signing day, it complicates things a lot when you're making a change like this. But certainly we want to move quickly. I don't want to put a time frame on it, but quickly and efficiently, as quickly and efficiently as we can.
Have Rich or Mike expressed interest in this job? Do you consider them a candidate at all?
Right now we're kind of looking at all options. We haven't narrowed our list down to kind of a specific list yet of 4 or 5 names. I haven't specifically spoken to either one of them about this job, but anything right now is on the table.
And this is the same firm you used for Kermit's hire, is that correct?
Okay. Correct.
Keith, you're left. Financial parameters of all this, cost of getting out of the current deals, budget limitations going forward based on budget cuts that you've had in the last year. Obviously, it's an expensive proposition all the way around.
It is, and I think I made some comments last week, though, that we'll always make decisions that are in the best interest of our programs. And, let's be honest, we have some financial things we have to work through. With Matt's contract, we can pay it out over a 4-year period, which will help there. All of our assistant coaches' contracts have mitigation clauses in them that if they get other jobs, that number comes off of the number that we owe them. So there's some things there that we can work through. But certainly we'll handle that internally. There was a lot of noise kind of yesterday that there was a booster group that had said they would pay the buyout. I haven't spoken to a single booster about a buyout. Not to say that I won't, or not to say that I won't talk to them about helping us with a new coach. But we will handle that internally, and we'll work with our department CFO and our foundation CFO to make that happen. There's always limitations, Richard. But we will be very competitive. We'll be very competitive. We will go out and we'll find the best coach we need to get, and we will do what we need to do financially to get that coach.
Keith, right here in the middle. You spoke of fan apathy, with exception or with the removal of Matt Luke as the coach. What are some things you and your staff will do to try to regain that support from the fan base?
Well, and again, I talked a little bit about this last week, is that, we've got to be out in front of people. We've got to find a head coach that can walk into a room and absolutely take over that room and galvanize people, bring them back. I think people want to support. They want to come back. They want to come to Ole Miss football games. But we just lost some of that luster, and I think bringing somebody in that can have energy, again, they can walk in and kind of own a room and be charismatic and make sure that, that they're talking about the future and the vision of Ole Miss football. I think we can get people back quickly.
Erin Wilson with WTVA. Did Thursday have anything to do with your decision on Matt Luke, specifically with the situation that happened with Elijah Moore and then something similar happening a few years before with another player under Matt Luke's leadership? Did that have anything to do with your decision to move forward without him?
I don't think specifically that incident did. I mean, I think it was a totality of everything. I think that as you look at the wins and losses on the field, that was one of the main things. And then I think that with the way the game ended on Thursday, it was a little bit of an exclamation point on some of the apathy that was out there already. And I think that it probably put some people on the other side of that maybe we couldn't get back. And so certainly the game, the way it finished, was a factor. But by no means was it the only factor or the main factor.
Not to keep going back to this, but in the Kermit search, you mentioned many times afterwards how much you appreciated being actively involved in that process. What did you learn from that to now lead this search and be the only person that's kind of directing it? How important was that? Yeah,
it's very important. I think that the thing I learned about that search is confidentiality is so important, and I think Chad and the folks at Ventura will help us with that. But ultimately, you got to sit down with people. You got to look them in the eye, and you got to talk about a shared vision. You got to talk about them wanting to be at our place, wanting to build our program, wanting to be at Ole Miss. And I think when we were with Kermit, he was the last person that we interviewed, just based on timing, and we knew within 5 or 10 minutes that it was different. And I think that's what I'm looking for here. I want to sit down across from somebody, and when you see in their eyes what their vision is, how excited they are for our opportunity, all those things, and they have to fit the mold. A lot of the things we've talked about. But that's what I'm going to look for, and I think that search is going to be a very valuable resource as I go into this one.
Keith, what is the itinerary for official visits this weekend? A lot of the recruits, commits said they were coming in. Also, the assistant coaches, are they going to continue being on the road recruiting and telling them, explaining what's going on?
Yeah, so the assistants will continue to be on the road. I'm actually going to meet with Coach Mack and Tyler Siskey this afternoon to talk about some ins and outs of recruiting. We had a big weekend coming up this weekend that's probably going to be changed dramatically. So we're going to talk about that, talk about the best way to use our official visits. Do we need to save those? Do we need to use some now? I'll rely kind of on those guys to help. They've been tremendous. Tyler's been tremendous so far. So I'll meet with them today at 4 o'clock, and we'll talk about kind of what that looks like moving forward.
Keith, I think easily can say I'm the only guy in this room that played for a coach that got fired in the middle of a season. And that's not the important part. The important part was the next two hires after that were both bust. Neither one of those guys had any Mississippi ties, not necessarily Ole Miss, but no Mississippi ties whatsoever. Is that going to be important to you going forward with the search?
You know, I think the goal is to get the best coach. And if that coach has a Mississippi tie, I think that's a positive. But if he doesn't, then if he's the best coach for our situation, that's who we're going to hire. And, you know, I think that you know, a lot of times you want to have somebody that understands the region, somebody that understands the recruiting base, a lot of those things. But sometimes, you know, maybe not necessarily a direct Mississippi tie. We'll go out, we'll search the landscape, and we'll hire the best coach. Thank you, guys.